In today's show, I'll be joined by Demi Ryans, and we'll be talking about how important personal enrichment is outside the classroom. Do you make time for it? And what are you do in particular to enrich your life? As always, tune in.
Live from London,
Oh, wow,
this
that
is
didn't
the
go so
Sunday
well.
Lunch with Kalil Rouse on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/lsw/ttradio or search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio.
Afternoon, everyone. I might have to run my intro again. Do you know why? Because my headphones were far too low and I couldn't even hear the music and I got carried away. The sun got to my head, and before you knew it, I was running out of time. Didn't even finish. So I might even run the intro again just to redeem myself because I can't start the show like that. I'm far too much of a perfectionist. It's great to see people already in the studio on this sunny Sunday. Got some familiar names in there. Karen, I see you. It's good to have you back. But I'm literally gonna have to run my intro again because I can't have it. I can't have it like that, the start of my show, to not be on point. So let's run it again.
Live from London, this is the Sunday Lunch with Kalil Rouse on Teachers Talk Radio.
Good afternoon. It's just gone 1 o'clock on Sunday, the 13th of June, and you're tuned in to the Sunday Lunch Show with me, Kalil Rouse, on Teachers Talk Radio. In today's show, I'll be joined by Demi Ryans, and we'll be talking about how important personal enrichment is outside of the classroom. Do you make time for it, and what do you do in particular? Tune in and talk it out. And as always, I am live.
Live from London, this is the Sunday Lunch with Kalil Rouse on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live on the Podbean app or desktop player. Just head over to www.podbean.com/lsw/ttradio or search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio.
That is much, much better. Listen, if you are tuned in on the dot 1 p.m. on a sunny Sunday, on a day when England are kicking off their Euros and it's like 20 something degrees outside, all I can say is thank you. Thank you, because listen, this is a kind of day to definitely be outside. I don't know if you are watching the game, let me know where you're watching the game from. I can't even not talk about the game. I'm a huge football fan. I'm an Arsenal fan. And of course, England, the team I'll be supporting in the Euros as well. To start this whole thing off, just before we get into talk, I can't not talk about England game. What are your predictions for the game, please? Put them in the chat. I'm very intrigued to know what people's predictions are. I asked the same question to the Teachers Talk Radio kind of group chat, and Tom Rogers came in, ever the optimist, said 1-2 loss. So basically a 2-1 loss. He's not very optimistic about England's chances today. Playing Croatia, he doesn't fancy their chances. If you are watching the game or likely to watch the game at 2 p.m., let me know in the chat what your predictions are. More particularly, what you think the scorers may be, all that kind of stuff. Because listen, they say football's coming home. They say it every single time, and it hasn't come home for what, 40, 50 years, essentially. It's all nonsense. Quick maths there, 54-ish years. I hope I got that maths right. Yes, I did. So it's one of those things. I was reminded about the World Cup of 2018 very recently when I watched a video, and I forgot that we actually lost to Croatia in the semis of the World Cup in 2018. I completely forgot about that. So we owe them. We definitely owe them. So let me know your predictions for this game. Can we do it? Can we start with a win, or are we just going to be a disappointment? I'm not optimistic when it comes to England. I think it's got something to do with me being an Arsenal fan. I'm not very optimistic about the Gunners either. But let me know what you think. So Mr. Tom Rogers said 2-1 loss, unfortunately. Then we had Mr. James Clark, one of our fellow hosts as well, saying 2-1 to England, but he knows the hope is real. He's an optimist. Fingers crossed, 2-1 to England. Mr. Tom Hopkins Burke has said there will be goals, but he thinks it's going to be a 3-2 loss because he has he doesn't feel very sure about our defense. He's got some reservations about our ability to keep the ball at the back of the net. If you're just joining, I've just seen some more people joining the studio. I've seen Mr. Don Rouse. I've got Tim, Chem Commando. Let me know your predictions for the England game, please. I'm an England fan. I wouldn't call myself, I'm the kind of England fan where, I don't know about you guys, but if we score, I'll celebrate. If we win, yep, I'll celebrate. If we lose, meh, I'm not that bothered, I don't think. I say that now. But I think once Maybe once the game starts, maybe I'll become the kind of avid supporter. But let me know your predictions, people. What do you think about the game? What do you think of England's chances? I know this is Teachers Talk Radio, but I can't not mention the fact that the Euros is kicking off in a matter of minutes. Well, about 54 minutes or so, the game's kicking off. It is likely, therefore, that this show will only run till about 2 o'clock because I want to watch the game myself. I'm not going to lie to you. I want to watch the game myself. So I'm most likely to end the show at around 2 p.m., maybe just before, so I can get my beverage. I can sit down in front of the TV and hopefully watch the boys put on a performance um, for the nation and whoever else. So again, we had another prediction. So let me know your predictions, please. It seems as though there's a lot because the lineup is out. If you don't know the lineup yet, I'll run through the lineup. It feels like I'm not even doing a Teachers Talk radio show. It feels like I'm doing a football show at the moment, but I might as well tell you the lineup if you weren't aware of it. So we've got Mr. Jordan Pickford in goal, pretty standard. It seems as though we've got Kyle Walker at right back. It looks like we've got John Stones with Tyrone Mings. And this is the controversial bit, it seems. It seems as though we've got Kieran Trippier at left back. And this seems to be controversial. If you're not a football fan, then the reason why this is controversial is because Kieran Trippier is technically a right back by trade. He's a right-footed and he's at left back. So people aren't happy about it. It looks like we've then got Calvin Phillips. We've got Declan Rice holding midfield with Calvin Phillips, with Raheem Sterling, Mason Mount, Phil Foden, and Harry Kane up top. We'll see. Listen, if you're listening live, let me know your thoughts and your predictions. If you're listening back on the podcast and the game has already happened and you know the result, hopefully we managed it. It's a bit strange to think about that because people do listen back to a podcast, this as a podcast quite often. So you're probably listening back after the game. Hopefully they did the business. As I was saying though, just to kind of bring it back, Tim's Tim, what's your prediction, mate? Maybe you're not a football fan. I was talking to my partner just now, and I don't want to be the person who kind of assumes that everyone's going to be watching the game or everyone's an avid football fan, because not everyone is a football fan. Football definitely divides the nation in a certain proportion. I'm not going to make a prediction, but I believe when it comes to Euros and the World Cups and everything else, it does kind of galvanize a lot of the nation. A lot of people who maybe don't watch football regularly do end up watching the game. So maybe Tim Kemcom, yeah, he's going to say he's got it on. So if you've got the England game on in the background, you've got me in the background, then what more could you want on this sunny Sunday afternoon? So what's going to happen in the show later on is I will be joined by Demi Ryans, who's going to be coming on. We're going to be talking about personal enrichment outside of the classroom. We're going to be talking about what we do as professionals, if anything, consciously outside of the classroom to enrich ourselves. That could be anything. And hopefully when he comes on, he's going to talk to me about what he does outside the classroom. I'm going to talk to him about what I do, if anything, outside the classroom as well. It's a sunny Sunday afternoon. Couple more predictions coming through. Mr. Don Rouse, 57, has predicted 2-0 to England. And also in the kind of, again, the host chat, we had one more person saying 1-0 to England. Boring game predicted, but a win nonetheless. That is the plan. So those of you in the studio at the moment, I'll ask a question to you now before I'm going to look at some current affairs as well, just as I wait for my guest to join the live studio. What do you do? Is personal enrichment, first of all, how would you even define personal enrichment? Is that the same as a hobby? This is a genuine question. I was thinking about this before the show, thinking, what would I make my definition of something that is personal enrichment? Is that the same as a hobby? Are all hobbies also a form of enrichment? Or are there some hobbies that aren't? Because I'm going to be asking Demi Ryans this myself, but I don't know the answer to that question. I do wonder. Right, let's talk current affairs, because I did a little bit of looking into some news to do with schools. I've got to talk about schools because it's a Teachers Talk radio. Bit of housekeeping first, though. As always, if you're listening for the first time, welcome. If you're listening live through the Twitter stream, welcome. If you're listening back on a podcast, welcome. Way to listen back to Teacher Talk Radio is to head to www.ttradio.org/listen back. That's how you can listen back to all of our shows. I'm on one of the Sunday, obviously this is a Sunday show. There are loads and loads of shows. Just before me, we had Mr. Graham Collum. He did a show on conspiracy theories and how you address them in the classroom. Then we had Sobia, had a breakfast show where she was talking about classics and whether there's a space for classics in the classroom. Very, very interesting show as well on classics. I never did classics growing up. It was one of those things. I went to uni and ended up going to uni with a whole bunch of people that did classics, and I had no idea what it was. And to this day, I still don't really know what it's about. I'm assuming it's to do with Latin and some other ancient languages. But again, I'm going to admit my ignorance here. Didn't study it. Genuinely, never been interested in it. But it was a very interesting show. So if you're a person who is quite interested in classics, or maybe you studied classics when you were growing up, then I'd advise you to listen back um, to Sobia's Breakfast Show. And later on, you've got Fiona Salt. Someone is actually calling in. It is my guest. 1 second, I missed it. You came too quick. One time, do it again. It came on my screen far too quickly. I missed it. Demi, call again, please, because I missed the invite button. I apologize. We're gonna wait. The tension is building. There we go. Invite. Let's see if this works first time.
Yo, can you hear
Here
me?
we go. Demi Ryans, can you hear me? I don't know why I named you, by the way.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. People in the chat, got a whole bunch of people just joining the live video. We have to know if we are loud and clear. I think we are. Demi, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's good to be able to just get a little bit of rest and enjoy the fine weather. How about you?
I'm all right. Do you know what? I'm all right. I'm baking. If I'm honest, I am baking at the moment. I'm in my, I was going to call it my studio. I was going to stunt for the mic, but I'm not in a studio. I'm in my bedroom. I was about to say I'm in my studio. It's a massive lie. I'm in the corner of my bedroom, but I am baking. I've got the sun beaming, but it's a beautiful day. Blue skies. I can't really complain, to be honest. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. Where are you at the moment, Demi?
Do you know what? I was gonna do this in my study, but I had to come outside. It's too. Do you know what? The last week I was doing some CPD for a reading intervention, and we've obviously had we've had some glorious weather. But what I found was for like 3-4 days straight, all I did was stay inside, and I'd come outside, and obviously the finest of the weather is gone. And I'd just look at it and just be like, do you know what? I've spent the whole day inside staring at a computer screen, and I found it like incrementally frustrating. So yesterday and today, I've tried to make a little bit more of an effort to be outside just to be able to enjoy it. So
no,
yeah,
same as
nice,
you know what? Same as me. In school this week, I feel like I've not really. The only time I've been outside is beginning of the day when it's not even that warm, and end of the day I go outside. But genuinely, it's because of my job. I have to chase kids around the whole day, and they're indoors. So I don't really. It's not until it gets and the worst thing is lunchtime. We've got split lunches. So when my year group has their lunchtime, I'm actually teaching another year group. So I don't even get outside then. So I feel like I've not really enjoyed the weather yet. But I want to make a conscious decision, like you said. I need to make a conscious decision to get outside more. And I wish if my Wi-Fi could stretch, I'll go sit outside I was gonna stunt and say I've got a garden. I haven't got a garden. I'll sit outside in the little car park area of the block of flats we live in. But my Wi-Fi doesn't stretch that far, so I need to stay indoors. But it's a beautiful day.
Are you on the ground floor?
Yeah, we're ground floor. So it's possible, like, you know what, my Wi-Fi could stretch, I could sit outside. I'll lose my 2 screens, that's the only problem. But I could literally sit outside. I'm also worried about my laptop, whether it'll burn in the sun. But apart from that, I'm ground floor indoors at the moment.
Because what you could always do is get a TP link.
Hold on, do you know what? I can't hear you. Sounds like 1 second. Have you got an airplane or something flying past?
Do you know what? I can't believe that it's picked that up. Yeah, airplane just flew over the top of me.
Listen, whatever microphone you're using is sensitive because I picked that up like it was in my room. It was loud and clear for me.
I'm just using my headphones. That's it.
Listen,
I'm just using the microphone in my headphones.
Yeah, it picked it up loud and clear. But what were you saying? Sorry, what were you saying just now?
I was saying get a TP link where you plug it in, so you can get 2. You can get one that you plug one end into your router and then the other end into a plug near where you want to be, and it will pass your Wi-Fi signal through the electric cables in your house, and then channel it. Yeah.
What? Hold on. Hold on. Rewind this, please. So a TP link.
Yeah.
So where do I? What? Go on.
So that one is called a power line TP link. So basically, you take your the plug for your router,
Okay.
and you plug your router into the TP link, and then you plug the TP link into the wall. So you know, like how you get like socket adapters.
Yeah.
It's basically a socket adapter that creates a second Wi-Fi network off of your original one. But
Right.
what you do when you plug that one in to the main router, you then have a second unit. So you basically have like a transmitter and a receiver. You plug the receiver unit near where you like want your Wi-Fi to be, and then it will create a Wi-Fi network in that area. So for example, like my garden, we've got a little room at the other end, and because when the person that built the that room, when they did the electrics, they ran the electrics off of our actual house. So I can get a Wi-Fi network at that end of the garden because I can plug to my router that's in the house, and then put the transmitter in the garden, the receiver in the garden room. So then I get Wi-Fi, like it's like probably 20 odd meters from the router, just by being able to plug in two places.
Wow.
So
Do you know
if you,
what?
so, yeah, get one of
Yeah.
those. Get one of those, or you could just
I'm
get
gonna.
a signal
I'm
booster.
gonna. Yeah, that's the thing, right? So listen, now you're speaking my language. Signal booster, I understand. I've got one. I plugged it because I'm gonna act like I can't even act like I understood a word you just said. I was listening, but it was, bro. It was a problem. I've got the Wi-Fi extender. I plugged it into the wall, and that's allowing me to ping strong signal here. That is the limit of my technological understanding of what you just said. But I
Bro,
will do some
that's
research because
basically
I
it.
feel like I'm missing out.
That's basically it.
But yeah,
Like
but you said
all
when you
the
said transmit Wi-Fi through through electric cables, you
yeah,
lost me, man.
yeah, it does. It
Man,
does. It trans. So what
wow.
it does is when you plug it into your router, when you plug the receiver into the other end, the signal that would be usually broadcast via your Wi-Fi is passed along the electric cabling in your house and comes out of that receiver. Bro, it baffled me when I read it.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm
I,
sorry. So I was like, I'm sorry. So you're telling me that I can use my general electric cabling to get Wi-Fi?
I, I don't know. I'm gonna do some research. I've got people in the chat saying we're having it's about full physics. It's about full physics conversions, and Don Rouse is saying it uses the ring main. This is technical. We're gonna stop this because I don't like not knowing what's going on right now. I don't know what's going on. People are talking about stuff that I have no. Let's get to stuff I understand. So, right, cool. What's the time? We're good. We're good. Okay, so you've got another plane going past. It's all good. So let's
Do I?
talk. Let's talk first. Can you
Oh
not
yeah.
hear it?
Do you know what? That's mad. I can't hear it because these are noise cancelling headphones. So I'm not hearing any of that. I only hear
There we
you.
go.
I
Right,
only
got you.
hear you. So when you said I've got another plane passing by, I looked up and I'm like, oh yeah, I do.
Okay, let's get into what we're supposed to talk about because time is precious. We're only doing, like I said, we're only doing a shorter show today because I want to watch the football. I'm not going to lie to you. So, personal enrichment, we started talking about it. First of all, do you know what, Debbie? First of all, the pronunciation, are you going for Demi? Is it Demi, right?
It's Demi. It's fine,
Oh,
yeah.
it's Demi.
Demi, because
Okay,
it's just
fine.
short for it's just short for my username is, yeah.
Right,
Although I
perfect. So,
do like
Demi,
Demi.
what sounds continental?
Yeah, it does. I might have to start switching up and like, hey, I'm Demi. Just
Demi sounds like it. Yeah, like you got a little, you got something. If you're a
little
Demi, I don't know. I don't even know what
yeah.
that something is. Either way, right? Tell the listeners, please, Demi or Demi, whichever I'm going to go for. Who knows about yourself and yeah, just a little introduction about yourself, please, and what your connection is to the wonderful world of teaching.
Okay, so Demi, I've been teaching since 2015. Started at Harris Academy Morden. Shout out to the Harris Academies. Enjoyed my time there, and then yeah, I mean, even before that, I was involved in education because I used to work with children's charities that would sort of run projects in schools. But yeah, for me, sort of since teaching, I've always tried to strive for that work-life balance. I think that's part of what we talk about when we're talking about personal enrichment. And I think, obviously it does come in a wide variety of forms, some of those being sort of subject related. And I even saw someone commenting and talking about the holistic side of it, where, actually we need to be able to go, it was actually in reference to students, that students need to be able to do other things that, shape them as whole individuals. But we as teachers need to be doing that as in my opinion, I should say. I think we as teachers need to be doing that as well for a wide variety of reasons that aren't just linked
Mm.
to the students.
Yeah, Demi, just so you know, someone's saying that your sound is low. Have you moved away from the mic, by any chance?
No? Do you know what? Give me. How
Yeah,
about now?
that's
Any
a lot.
better?
That's a whole lot clearer. I think that Don Rouse.
Okay.
Let me know if that's a. I don't know. I'm full naming you. Let me know if that's a lot clearer. It sounds a lot clearer to me. What change was that?
Pardon?
What did you change just now?
I just picked my phone up. I just picked my phone up.
Yeah,
I'd hidden it.
keep it there. Keep it aloft. Keep it aloft. So
Cool,
let's
cool.
do some definitions here, because I feel like I wanna define our terms here. So we're speaking about the same thing. What's your definition of personal enrichment? What would you consider to be enrichment? Is it the same as just having a hobby? Is my question, because it's a genuine thing I've been thinking about myself. It's very
I
different.
think it. I mean, I think this is where we get into the debate. I think some people might look at personal enrichment and instantly see that should be some sort of correlation, or could be some sort of correlation with the subject that you are teaching, and then what you're doing outside of the classroom that is connected to that subject. I've
Mm,
got mixed feelings about that, because I also think that that could count as subject enrichment as well, and I'm not 100%. I guess again, it depends on what the intent behind what you're doing is. If you're doing it
mm,
specifically with the end goal of bringing that back into the classroom, I probably would look at that as more subject knowledge enrichment. I think that's definitely more, because you're learning for the purpose of teaching. Whereas I
yeah.
think what we were talking about, I think more was, I guess, what you're doing that may or may not be linked to your subject, that does fulfill you. And yes, there is the potential that you might see some crossover in your role as an educator, but that isn't necessarily the driver behind why you're doing it in the first place.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because for me, I'm this on this stage. I'm very honest. I don't do anything. I haven't done anything in my life. I'm just thinking back that I'd say was done with the conscious decision of bringing it back into the classroom per se. Like, I'm a maths teacher, and
Yes.
I think I'm trying to just wrap my brain now. I don't think I've done anything outside the classroom or in my spare time, deliberately with the intention of, I don't know, learning more about maths, or learning more about just my subject, enhancing my subject knowledge per se. I think it's different
Mhm.
because of maths. I think the difference is, obviously, maths, it's more, what's the word I'm going to use? Like, the actual maths itself is more fixed in terms of the skills that we were teaching, I don't know, 10 years ago are the same skills we're teaching now. And maybe I will develop a different way of teaching them. But in terms of actual content's not really changed. But I feel like when you've got the subjects, the more either the humanities, for example, history, for example, or maybe geography, history, English in particular, because I feel like
Mhm.
it's the actual content's a lot more fluid with the times. I feel like the content can change with the times and develop with the times if your school obviously allows you to. And then there seems to be more opportunity, therefore, to do things outside to broaden your knowledge base. I don't know. That's just how I feel like maths doesn't have the same. There's not the same element to maths, in my opinion.
That'd be intriguing. I'd be interested to see what like other whether or not other mathematicians
Mm,
would feel would feel that same sentiment. I guess it depends on what you're doing and where you see the connections. I genuinely think that that's a part of it, but there also has to be that boundary between, okay, are you doing it for pleasure, or are you doing it again for the sole purpose of taking it back to the room? And for some people, they want to keep those things separate.
mm,
Like I know, for example, like this one I would say was more a pastoral function that I think for me. So for the last 16 years, I've played American football on and off. And with that, I've learned a lot about a wide variety of skills and aspects of aspects of sort of human interaction that I've been able to bring into the classroom. Being able to talk about teamwork, being able to talk about following instructions, because following those instructions or plans, how they lead to the outcome that you seek. And I used to run an American football program at my last school. I ran that for 3 years. And that was incredibly enjoyable. And I used to just go out there and first of all, I used to go out there and the students and I would have fun. But there was still teaching going on within that. There were still things that I would teach them. Like, for example, if I had them running a particular route pattern that I needed them to run, and they wouldn't run it right, I would turn around and say to them, okay, let's break this down. Let's say that this was an illustration that you had to draw for mathematics. Okay, you've been told that you need to draw it, say 4 centimeters along one length and then 7 centimeters along the width, because you need to be able to connect them and they create that intersecting distance in between. What happens if you do not draw them accurately? They're able to talk about the fact that it goes wrong. I said, okay, so why aren't you running your route properly? So I could take things from the classroom and bring it out on the field. However, in my role that I had at my last school, where sometimes I would be, working with students that, they have their scrapes with, what their expectations are within the classroom. Again, little things like that were brilliant, especially if they were really excelling on the American football field. Be like, oh, okay, well, you know what it takes to execute. So why is it that you're choosing to execute in one area, but you're not choosing to execute in the area that ultimately matters? When and being able to draw those correlations between the two, I think there definitely was a benefit for me in sort of the personal enrichment that I was enjoying from playing American football and having that as something that I had in my life, and then what I was able to do with that within the confines of my school environment.
Yeah. So you were saying that you say you play it. So I'm assuming therefore you've got when you play American football, you've got a coach and or a manager. Is that correct?
Yep.
So do you think, I always thought there's a lot of benefit from especially teachers doing things that put themselves in the role of not really, I could say student, but just someone who's subordinate, for example, or someone who like a tutee or a coachee, for example. I feel like there's a lot of power and a lot of benefit to teachers in particular, remembering what it's like to be the person who's being given the instructions as opposed to being the giver of instructions. Have you found that that's been of benefit to you as well? Just being the person who's... Go on.
Absolutely. Because I know for me that, and again, I think there's other dynamics in there, like obviously the fact that I'm an adult and they might be children shouldn't make any difference to matters of respect. But I think that's an important thing, that, I understand, one, how to communicate my expectations, because I'm used to being like, able to look at that and be like, right, well, that might not have gone the way that coach wanted it to, because he didn't really explain or model what he wanted to see done first before we had to go off and do it. And maybe I'm hypersensitive to that because I'm a teacher. So, obviously so much of our lives is spent in planning and execution, and we have to drill and practice and train very hard to be able to do the things that we do. We don't just sort of wake up and do them and make them look effortless. So I think, being able to sort of see sometimes examples of where it goes right in other settings and how that person's done that, or also the examples of where it's gone wrong, very much the case. I like that. I like the way that you put it, though, in terms of, teachers sometimes need to put themselves in situations where, they are not fully autonomous, where they have to be somewhat accountable to somebody else for the way in which they function and operate. And I know we are in those types of roles to some degree with line management structures, but I've never had a line management structure that has held me to account in the very ready way that my coaches would. Like, my line manager isn't going to come up to me after I've dismissed my class from a lesson and give me feedback on how I did. in the same way that my coach, when I come off of the field, I mean, my team was really well organized. So every time we come off the field, our positional coaches would be giving us direct feedback on how we as individuals had performed, talking points on things that he's seen that we've missed. And then we'd go and we'd talk to our sort of our entire defensive unit coordinator, and they would give their feedback on how the overall group had performed and what they saw that they liked and what they didn't like. So I think that, we don't have that sort of micro level of feedback going in for us. But so I do think actually when you're in that environment that a child is in, where they might write something down and they're getting that immediate feedback, and how you communicate that, you know not your pleasure with what they've done, but your reflections on the success of their work. I think that there's definitely something in that with how we communicate with the students, and ensure that they understand that we're feeding back on their work rather than them as people.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think it just reminds me, asking you a question about putting ourselves in the position of students again. Reminds you of I remember I sent a tweet out ages ago, which was just all about, and I think it got a bit of attention. I was talking about how teachers often behave in boring CPD sessions, and it just reminds me of. I remember tweeting about it, and it got like I said, it got a lot of chat. I was just basically saying that teachers often complain about behavior and everything else, but then if a CPD session is not engaging or not interesting, or I don't know, or just teachers are in like a weird mood, teachers misbehave just as bad, if not worse, than some of the students we teach. And I've always laughed about it whenever I've been in CPDs, looking around saying, this is really, if only the kids could see us when we're behaving like this in a CPD session. It is important sometimes, like you were saying, through your kind of enrichment of doing American football, to remember what it's like to be a student, because it's not that we take so many things like it's just simple. Yeah, pay attention, don't mess about, stay nice and quiet like that. We take it as adults now, like, yeah, it's really easy. But then when you speak to teachers, whenever I have conversations with teachers about what were you like at school, most teachers tell me, oh yeah, I caused a few issues, or yeah, I was a bit of a chatterbox and all this kind of stuff. And we need to remember that what it was like for us to be kids when we're teaching. So that's why I believe whenever I teach, I try to make everything seem like it's the most interesting thing, just to kind of grip them, because I can't just rely on the fact that they're learning alone to be the thing that grips them, because unfortunately for a lot of kids, that alone isn't enough. You need to, whatever you're teaching, whether it's maths or English or science or history, you want to deliver it like it's the most interesting thing they're going to learn right now or today or whatever else, so that they actually buy in. Because I think some teachers just kind of walk into a room. I've seen it myself in previous schools. They walk into a room and they just deliver content, and then they're surprised when people start losing interest. And I'm in the room being like, yeah, this is boring. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm bored. And if I'm bored as an adult, I can't imagine what these kids are feeling when it's a third, fourth lessons a day, and you don't even seem like you're that interested in what you're teaching. So like, you don't even seem like you're that interested in it. So teach it like it's interesting, and the kids will buy in. But yeah, right. We've been sidetracked, but it's all good. Right. So that was one type of enrichment. We were talking about, and I want to find out more about this book, because what we're going to do it on the other side of some news. Because like I said, because it got a shortened show slightly, I need to make sure I fulfill my host obligations and actually make sure we pay the bills with the news and everything else. So what we're going to do, I'm going to put you on mute for a moment, Demi. I'm going to run the news and a little bit of advertisements. And on the back of that, afterwards, we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about how you and I do some, and everyone else, at any time, if you are listening, feel free to call in and join the conversation. It is a live talk show. So please feel free, join the conversation, join myself and Demi as we talk all things personal enrichment on the other side of this.
Introducing Amanda Davey. Amanda is one of the first specialist teacher assessors for dyscalculia in the UK and offers dyscalculia tutoring and bespoke training for schools. With 26 years of teaching and tutoring experience in the UK, Amanda offers specialist online tuition focused on building confidence and developing skills. Amanda also offers online and face-to-face training on dyscalculia for educators, informing practitioners as to how to identify children that may have dyscalculia and how to support them in class. Find out more about Amanda and what she can offer you at www.amanda-davy-dyscalculia.co.uk. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
This is your Teachers Talk Weekend News. Nicola Sturgeon has denied claims by opposition parties that this year's awarding of results will be a shambles, similar to complaints last year when thousands of pupils received lower grades than they were expecting. The First Minister insists that the 2021 results process is a world away from the situation in 2020, as this year results would be based on the judgment of teachers who looked at work pupils had done. She made it clear that no past results or algorithms will dictate what a learner's grade will be. Last year, the Scottish Government was forced to U-turn and upgrade the results of approximately 75,000 pupils. Schools across the UK are being encouraged to start a conversation on climate change ahead of the UK hosting a global climate change summit known as COP26 later this year. The Together for Our Planet Schools Pack was launched on Thursday, the 10th of June, and aims to encourage student climate change leaders to come forward to inspire others. Resources include a guide for running a green assembly, ideas to organise a walk to school week, and other resources provided by the likes of World Wildlife Foundation and TED Talks for Schools. As part of the launch, Prime Minister Boris Johnson visited a school in Cornwall, already playing its part in fighting against climate change. The Global Summit will be held in Glasgow this year between the 1st and the 12th of November. "150 academics at Oxford University are refusing to tutor students at Oriel College until the college removes the statue of a donor who they say glorifies colonialism. The statue of Cecil Rhodes, an Oxford student in the 1870s, stands on the college's building on Oxford High Street. Rhodes is described as an imperialist by many and played a dominant role in southern Africa in the late 19th century. An independent commission had previously ruled that the statue should be removed, but acknowledged the challenges in terms of planning permission and cost. To have the statue removed, permission would need to be sought by Community Secretary Robert Jenrick.
Okay, that was your weekend news. Let me bring Demi back off mute. Demi, are you there?
I am indeed, sir.
Wonderful. So that was a bit of the news and also one of our adverts. So we've got in about 20 minutes to go until we're going to end the show because I've got a game to watch. But what I want to talk about is this book by Jeffrey. And the thing is, I've got a close friend of mine who has the same surname, and they pronounce her surname as Boachi. I don't know how he pronounces his. I may be the same. But Jeffrey Boachi, is that how you know to pronounce it? Am I pronouncing this correctly? Do you know?
Do you know what? In his book, he talked about it, and I think he said Boachi is basically how we in England would pronounce it, and then he said back home in Ghana it would be Boach. But yeah, so you wouldn't hit the E, you would just be like Boach.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. So we got Jeffrey Boach, and he's got this book, and I've got your actual review in front of me, and I'll do a cheeky plug. So this review I've got is on. If you wanted to read this review, you would head to AnansiRyans.com. So that's ANANSI for Anansi, then Ryans.com, and you'll find some book reviews. And you have reviewed his book called Musical Truth, which is titled A Musical History of Modern Black Britain in 28 Songs. This sounds intriguing to me, and it's something that I think, based on your review, I've actually been more inclined to actually buy it myself. Give the listeners and myself a bit of a breakdown about what this book is about and how it's been enriching to you. in your kind of personal life? And I'll probably interrupt and ask a whole bag of questions as you start talking.
That's fine. So I mean, I think you summarized it really well. That basically what Jeffrey's done, very much in his style. If you don't know about him, he's written a couple of other books. First there was Blacklisted, and then there was Hold Tight on sort of Black British masculinity, grime. Actually, it was on sort of black men, masculinity, and the meaning of grime. That's what he talks about there. So with him, with Jeffrey, his work definitely seems to focus on sort of like the intersections between often sort of music and culture, or certainly history, as is the case with this more recent book. And I think for me, the thing that I've come to appreciate and be inspired by the way that sort of Jeffrey works is, he definitely can see, as an English teacher, you can see where he's bringing sort of the skills of an English practitioner into his own work. And I imagine as well that he takes that and brings it into the classroom. This particular book is very insightful, especially in the light of ongoing conversations about sort of the contempt or the history of modern Black Britain, starting from Lord Kitchener, when he came over as the first group of people on the Empire Windrush. And the book sort of tracks through different years in history and events using particular artists that sort of best encapsulate those periods in history. Alongside then sort of, real focuses on what was happening sort of within Britain as a whole, but also sometimes in particular instances what was going on within the Black community. What I love about it is the way in which the book, it doesn't pull punches. It covers a wide variety of issues. It covers a wide variety of genres as well. There isn't any sort of respectability politics being played by avoiding certain artists. So, as you get to more the time that we're in, I think like the last 3 artists in the book are all grime artists. I think 2000, and I think there's an entry for sort of 2017, one for 2019, 2020. The book ends with George Online, Black and Ready, which came off of the back of the Black Lives Matter protests over this time last year, and sort of through and into the summer. And so from go on. No, go on after you, man.
No, I was going to say. So we've got. So it says musical history of modern Black Britain in 28 songs. You're mentioning artists. So I've literally not opened the book. I've not got the book, but I'm aware that there's some sort of playlist on Spotify. But then
and it's on YouTube as well.
Go on. Okay,
and it's on YouTube as well.
Is the idea that is each page or section of the book, has he used someone's song to then reference a period of is it history, or is it just a talk about the Black British community, the modern Black British community at the moment, over the last, what is it, like 30, 40 years, I imagine? Is it more about that?
It's both. So it is history. It's weird to think about it that way, because I think for some of us, obviously, as we've still grown up, we see that as our culture, but we are history in that sense. So, there's like a moment of silence in 1993 for Stephen Lawrence. So there isn't a song that could encapsulate how this moment feels and how this moment felt, not just for the Black community, but for Britain. So it's the only thing that we could do is to honor it as a moment of silence. And then he writes about what was taking place within British society, particularly with its relationship to the murder of Stephen Lawrence, the police investigation, the Macpherson report, Baroness Doreen Lawrence's enduring work in the aftermath of losing her son. So sort of like each chapter is written very much in that way, where it does look at it looks at the individual, it looks at the artist, but it's also looking at society and, yes, the Black British community around that artist, as influenced by that artist, as well as what informed that artist as well. And even down to, it's interesting because it obviously looks at Ed Sheeran as well. And when he won sort of the Brit Award for, I think it was The Shape of You. And, he unpicks the sort of the interesting sort of dynamic there that, you know, you look at the song itself, it is written essentially over a dancehall beat, and the commercial success of that song, and sort of, you know, he takes it as an indicator for the fact that, you know, things that we might have, or people like yourself and I, being sort of older members of the community, might look at and
Whoa,
say,
whoa, whoa! What you saying
yeah.
about me? What? Hold on, don't make any assumptions for the people about my age, please. Please don't make any assumptions.
Are you in
But yeah,
school? Are you
no,
in school? No,
I'm
okay,
an
so then
adult.
you're
I'm
older.
an adult, definitely.
You're older member of the community. Then, if a kid can
Tell it
walk
to
past you,
you call me
if a
uncle.
kid can walk past you and say, "Oh, my bad, uncle," then
I've never, to this day, let me tell you, I've never been called uncle before, and we'll hopefully, well, long may that continue while I'm in these greener years. I'm gonna call them my greener years. But okay, so
I'm
let me
gonna
just get my
say,
head around
if
it.
there,
Go on.
one second, if there are any students from your school listening, I hope that when they see you on Monday, they start calling you uncle.
I
just
hope two
ruin
things.
your day.
I hope that they're not listening to start with, and then secondly, that they don't. To be fair, I've got some cheeky kids. They definitely would if they heard this. They definitely would. So this book, is it just because conscious time? Is this book is it in chronological order then? Does it go
It is in
through?
chronological order. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm assuming therefore it will look at key events, starting from the earliest. What's the earliest years it looks at?
1948.
Okay, okay, and looks at key events then, and then up until what
All the
modern?
way
We're
through
talking 2020 or 2019 or
20,
2018.
2020.
2020. Okay. And then
Yeah.
each chapter, does each chapter begin with what, lyrics from a song or anything like that?
It often does, or it begins with maybe a reference to the song. Each chapter has a photograph, an illustration by Gaddy Smart of the artist on the front cover of the chapter. Before then, you sort of getting into the content, and, you know, each time the song is introduced, something unique about it, or why it's significant, why it appears in the book. Before then, sort of getting into the sort of discourse around, well, what either was happening within Britain at time, and why that book was somewhat, why that song was somewhat sort of synonymous or symbolic of sort of the Black British experience at that particular juncture in sort of history. It's really, really well written. I was actually having a conversation with Jeffrey yesterday, and he talked about how, you know, there is that passion for him in writing his books. Obviously, I think he's into his. I think he's working on books 4 and 5 simultaneously at present, or 5 and 6, and there is a love for him in being able to communicate and express himself in that way. But he also talked about the necessity to be kind with yourself with doing a project like that. And I think that applies to any level of personal enrichment that we're doing. Even if it has links back to the classroom, you've got to remember the essence of why you're doing it. If you're doing it to bring joy to your life, you need to protect and preserve that joy, and not turn your personal enrichment work into, you know, what is then starting to become like purely CPD, and, you know, really making it strict. And I think that's essential if you're going to be doing like whatever it is. Like I would apply the same thing for myself, because I'm also writing, but unlike Jeffrey, where his focus is more non-fiction, mine is more fiction based. And
Yeah.
there is a real temptation. There's a real temptation at times, and I do follow it where needed, to bring some of what I'm doing, or what I'm learning through the courses and work that I do outside of school, into the classroom. And there have been times when I've said, you know what, I could sit and really build a scheme of work around the things that I'm learning. And that's not to say that anyone that wants to do that would be wrong too. But my sort of pause point has been, oh, okay, how does that change the nature of what I'm doing at the moment? Will it change the course if my focus is more on um, looking at the strategies that my course tutor is using and thinking about how I can adapt it to the classroom, rather than actually focusing on how it's informing my own artistry as a writer? And I think that's where you've got to look at those things there and say, okay, well, how much of this is for me? How much of this is for my students?
Yeah, no, the distinction you made between personal enrichment and essentially like extended CPD is an important one. I like I said, when I said I don't really do anything outside the classroom, I would say I don't really feel like I do any kind of extended CPD outside of school. And I feel like I've made that as a conscious decision to just keep school as much as possible at school, and then keep my kind of personal life and everything else, things that I want to do as either hobbies or enrichment outside of the classroom, keep that separate and try not to conflate the two. And I get what you're saying about, as soon as you do, if you find something that you find is particularly enriching, then if you start making ties to the classroom, then I feel like you're essentially you're watering down the value it has for yourself. I feel like we should, as teachers, our job is so demanding, that we should make conscious time literally to do things for ourselves. And as weird as it sounds, not for our students, as in doing things that
Yeah.
we just want to, just so that we don't see our job as being all encompassing, all controlling, all enveloping, and we can actually say, you know what, no, I'm gonna go and make sure every Saturday or every Sunday I do this one thing for myself, because I do enough for other people, and it's about time I did some stuff for myself. And that, I think that alone could make you a better, could make you a better teacher, because you find you have the kind of mental, I don't know, just you have the space mentally to focus on work, because you know that at the weekend or on the Saturdays or the Sundays you're going to switch off completely and do something for yourself. Therefore you can give more of your energy on a Monday to Friday from 7 till 5, whatever kind of hours people work these days. There's so much value in it. And just people that are joining and people that are in here, welcome. We're currently talking about, we're coming towards the end actually, just talking about personal enrichment. Feel free, we've only got few minutes left, but feel free to call in. What do you do for yourself to personally enrich yourself outside of the classroom? Do you consciously make time to do something that is unrelated to your kind of pedagogy or your CPD, whatever you want to call it? Let me know in the chat if you do anything consciously, what you do and how important it is to you. For me personally, like I said, when we were talking about this, I said to you, I don't think I do anything that what I'd consider personal enrichment. And the reason why I said that at the time was because I was thinking, I don't do anything that really like makes me more, I don't know, academically broad, doesn't like broaden me academically. I do things that I find are just fun. Like I play games, or I play football, or I do this show. No offense to Tom Rogers if he's listening, if he thinks I'm saying this show isn't if he thinks I'm saying this show if he thinks I'm saying this show isn't academically enriching, it is. But again, it's not. I don't have ties. Doesn't give me any kind of. Doesn't make me a more of a kind of pedagogically grounded teacher in the classroom. So that's why I said I didn't really do anything. But you kind of checked me on that, saying, "Hold on, don't you do sport? Don't you do this? Don't you do that?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, but I just don't. I don't really see them as enrichment. I just saw them as things I do as hobbies."
Well, I mean, I think it's again. I think that's where it comes back to what we were saying about. Well, how do you define that enrichment? Is it? And I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about how it allows you to be a more whole individual who is a classroom teacher, rather than a person who is wholly a classroom teacher or wholly a middle leader, or head of department. Because the course that I'm on at the moment, it's a sizable obligation, in part because of the time of the week that it falls in. So my writing course is on a Wednesday. And I was like, oh, when I saw that, I was really excited. I was like, this is spot on. This is exactly what I want for where I'm at with what I'm currently doing. And I saw the time, and it starts at 7:40, and I was like, oh, that's so late, and it ends at like 20 to 10. I was like, man, that is such a weird time to put a course. I was like, for a teacher, that is backbreaking.
That
So I was
sounds
like,
like bedtime to me, boy.
I know. So I was hesitant on that, and I think it took me about 6 weeks to decide that I wanted to do it. And a part of it was turning around and saying to myself, listen to how much hand wringing that I have done over giving myself 2 hours in the middle of my week to think about nothing but myself and something that I like to do. Talk to people in other professions, many other professions, but not all, and they'd look at you and say that's nothing to them to go and do that, because they will happily embrace doing it. Like I talked to many of my American football teammates are, most of them are not teachers. I've got a couple that are, but the majority of them are not teachers. So for them, it is nothing for them to be like, oh yeah, they're in the gym until from like 6 o'clock in the evening till 9 o'clock, because they finished their job. They've got those different elements of separation that allow them to do that. And for us as teachers, our profession doesn't necessarily inherently provide those cut-off points and signal breaks or circuit resets for us. So we have to provide them for ourselves. So, I've got a colleague who she's joined a triathlon club. So she's training to do a triathlon. She's our acting head of department. So it's not like she's someone that is not incredibly busy with the classroom work, and then on top of that, incredibly busy with managing and overseeing our team of 12 plus people. So she's doing all of that, and then she goes and she trains 3 or 4 times a week, preparing to run a marathon come September. So not marathon, a triathlon come September. So I think sometimes it is also an element of us actually seeing that there is the time for us and choosing to use that time for us, because it could be so easy to turn around and say, do you know what, I could use that hour to do some extra marking. But you definitely could, but you could also use that hour to do something that's purely for yourself.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of power and benefit to talking to our own students about what we do outside of teaching, because as you know, and every other teacher listening or anyone that's been to school, when you look at your teacher, that's all they are. And as kids, you never really, when you look at your English teacher, when we were growing up, look at English teacher, Spanish teacher, whatever, that was everything that they were. They were a Spanish teacher, and that's it. They went home, they did Spanish marking. They came to school, they did Spanish teaching. At the weekend, they did Spanish something else. And that's all we thought they were growing up in. And then whenever you would find out something extra about your teacher, you'd be like, oh, what? So and then every time I tell kids that I do X, Y, Z, they always seem surprised that we have lives. And there's so much to be said. There's so much to be said for just talking to kids about you can be different. You can have different hats. You can wear different hats. And kids grow up thinking, I like games, therefore I'm a gamer, and I need to, therefore I've got my YouTube, I'm going to do my YouTube channel. And I say, great. But what are you going to do if that doesn't work out, for example, that kind of conversation? And you've got the boys who are like the big football fans, and that's all they are. And they want to go in to do football, and they're in the academies, everything else. Therefore, I don't need to focus on studies because I'm going to be a footballer. They say, yeah, I was good at football too, but I also got my studies. And I think when we grow up and we're adults now and we're teaching them, we're showing them, yes, we are academics, but yes, of course, I still play Call of Duty on the weekends at some point. And of course, this happens. And there's nothing wrong with having 2 sides or 3 sides or 4 sides to your kind of personality or your interests or your hobbies. And the more we tell kids this, the more they hear it, they'll grow up realizing, first of all, being good in school is not a problem. And also you can be good in school and also have a whole bunch more to you than just being the person who, I don't know, plays football or dances or whatever. And I think there's a lot of power, especially with your American football, bringing that. And what you teach English, is English your subject?
Yeah, I do teach English.
Yeah. You wouldn't expect the average English teacher to also be playing American football for a team outside of school. And I think those saying that to kids, they'll be like, oh, what? I didn't know. And you just become a human again, and not just Mr. or Miss in front of the classroom. A human being who has interests outside the classroom. It takes time for ourselves, and we can also translate that to our kids so they can hear it every minute of the day when they're growing up as well. We can influence them positively. That's our job, innit? We're teachers of children first. I've always said this. We're teachers of children first, and I'm a teacher of my subject second. And I think we need to teach them. I remember
seeing that.
Yeah.
Wasn't that another one of your controversial?
It was. Yeah. I don't even get why it's controversial. It's not even controversial in my opinion.
It's not so adamant. It's not to me either. It's not to me.
I couldn't believe it when I saw, and we're gonna have to end it in a moment because kickoff. I couldn't believe it when I saw people saying nah. But then it's not until you talk to them and say what I believed being a teacher of children or students first actually meant that I was managed to persuade a few. But others are like, no, I wouldn't teach. They're saying stuff like, oh no, that's primary school. I'm a secondary school teacher, therefore I am a teacher of my subject first. And I'm saying age is irrelevant here. What did you get into teaching to do? Literally, is it maths and maths only, English and English only, or were you trying to actually improve these young kids' lives? What was your aim here? And if they say, yeah, I was just to teach my subject, I say, fair enough, maybe you are a teacher of your subject, and that's you, that's fine. But me, I could teach any subject. Give me a cover lesson, I'll teach it, because I just like working with young people and passing on whatever I believe would be useful information for them. I like being able to do that. That's why I got into teaching.
Yes, man. I agree.
But yeah.
Like,
Indeed. Listen. I wish. Do you know what? You're gonna have to come on. I owe you some more time. So, um, Demi, it's been a pleasure. And like I said, we're gonna end it now because I want to go and watch the game. Are you watching the game as well?
what time does it start?
Right now, 2 o'clock.
Right now, bro, I didn't even know that the Euros were on this week. I didn't know. When people started talking about football's coming home, I'm like,
Yeah,
like I think
something's
I
happening.
realized it on I realized it was about the European Championships on like Thursday.
Yeah,
Like that's about the earliest that I knew it was happening.
yeah. Fair enough.
I don't
Fair enough.
know.
Have it on the
What
background.
channel is it on? Is it on ITV or is
Do
it
you know what?
on
I
BBC?
don't even know. It's ITV or BBC. I'm not sure. One of
Oh,
those
okay.
two.
I might throw it up on my phone whilst I'm in the garden.
Fair enough. All right, Demi, we'll chat. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming on to the kind of Sunday lunch show. Those of you that are in the studio and listen throughout or listen back on the podcast, thank you very much. As always, it's been a pleasure. I'll be back on the Sunday lunch show next week at the usual time of 1 p.m. Thank you very much, Demi.
Later. Thank you very much, man.
Later.
All
No
the
worries,
best.
man. Thank you.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.
Come on, England. Come on, England.